Hello, everybody, and thank you all so much for joining us for this event and just for Discover Fest in general. This is the second event of a long week of learning experiences and opportunities. My name is Joda from Discover, and we are super excited to be talking to Teri Ijeoma today. How are you, Teri?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Well, and I've done one event already with you before where you had your friend Sean come and interview you, and it was absolutely awesome and interesting to hear about your whole experience making the docu-series. But I know today we're going to talk a little bit about investing, and I want to ask you some questions about investing and stuff. But for everyone watching, we're going to fill a little time where I have some questions for Teri, and then please pop any questions you have into the chat. Now is your opportunity to ask Teri questions and learn more about if it's investing, that's more what we're talking about, but you can ask about just travel, whatever. We're an open book today. And please also hop in the chat. Let us know before we get going any further if you can hear and see us all right. We want to make sure that's all working. I want to call out, we got a couple people tuning in from San Francisco and from Georgia. That's awesome.
Georgia, hey.
Hey. Thank you all for joining us. And if we're moving fast or if you join late or anything, don't fret. There will be a replay available. It'll be here on the YouTube page. It'll be also on the Discover event page. So just don't fret if you're coming in late or have to get up a second. That'll all be here. But Teri, why don't we dive in? So can you just tell me a little more about you for people who maybe know an aspect about you or don't know about you at all? Just give us a little introduction.
Yes. For all those that don't know me, my name is Teri Ijeoma, and I'm the founder of a course called Trade and Travel. And ultimately, what happened was I was an assistant principal of an elementary school, but I just got overwhelmed, overworked, just too much, overstressed, and figured out I need a different plan. I need an exit strategy. And for me, that was trading stocks. I was able to quit my job and start traveling all around the world just by trading stocks. But as I was traveling, people started asking me to teach them how to trade too. They were like, "We know that you can't afford these Greece trips and this trip to Australia on just that teacher salary. So, how are you doing it?" So, I did my first class in Thailand. I did my second class in Vietnam. And then when I got home, I did another class and a ton of people showed up.
Hmm.
And this is when we figured out, oh, wait, this is a thing. I actually should probably put this online because people started asking me in Atlanta, and then shout out to Atlanta, and then California, and they started saying, "Teri, like, how can we get your class? Can you come and teach us here?" And so I put it online, I put it on Teachable, and now we've grown from my first class was October of 2018. And I had 30 people in that first online cohort. I was so excited, y'all, like so excited. And now we have over 10,000 students. We've had over $30 million in revenue, like lifetime sales. It's become like a huge thing. But the biggest thing I'm excited about is the lives that I've changed in the course. So students are actually hitting goals of making $1,000 in a day trading stocks. And then we have VIP students now that are making $10,000 in a day trading stocks. Literally just yesterday, someone on my Instagram was like, "Oh my gosh, Teri, you have changed my life. I never thought I'd be able to make $10,000. She had done it in a week trading stocks." So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about the lives we're changing and about just the ability to just revolutionize the investing space.
Yeah. Well, I love that more and more investing is becoming a thing of the people that everyone can get involved in and change their life. So, how did you choose investing? Because you're a teacher, and then investing is intimidating, and also you can get pretty burned. So, how did you come into that, and what was those initial that initial year or however long it took before you were really like succeeding at it?
Yeah. You know what's crazy? I've actually been trading 11 years now. 11. People
Wow.
think that, oh, because you have a course, like this is the first time you learned a skill. Like, no, I've been doing this for quite a while. And I started learning at MIT. I went to MIT for undergrad and I actually interned on Wall Street. So I interned at Morgan Stanley. But
Oh, okay.
I like we were in the trenches. I was mainly doing data and spreadsheets. So I was like, this is not for me. I don't really like this. So I ended up going into consulting, and one of one of my clients was Teach for America. So went on this whole trajectory of education. But after the housing crash in 2008, I started investing. I actually started investing in 2010, but I started investing on the side as a side hustle to supplement my income and education. So really, that's how it started. It
Okay.
started as, you know what, I just want to make a little extra money on the side. Let me see if I can, get into this stock world. And when I started, can you imagine, like, Apple stock was $99 and they were wondering if it would get to 100. Y'all, this is before it went up to 700, did a stock split, went up again, did a stock split. So like this is back in the day. And then I remember too, like at this time, Amazon stock was $199. And they were like, no one's ever going to buy stuff from an online company. So like that's what was going on when I started trading.
Wow. So good time to get in.
Yes.
Yeah.
But to tell you the truth, the first 6 years, I still struggled because
Mhm.
I didn't have anyone telling me what to do. So I was trying to figure it out on my own. And like that's the hardest part, I think, for anyone who's interested in trading. Like you hear that it's good, you probably have some friends that are making some money and you're curious about it. So you open an account, but then you don't know what to do.
Right.
And there's like not a lot of education. And then, especially in like the community where I grew up, nobody talks about investing at the kitchen table. Like it's just not something we discussed. Matter of fact, Jonah, like this is like real story. My senior year of high school, Google had their IPO and it was $83 a share. And I remember going to my grandmother and saying, Granny, like, we got to buy this stock. Like we got to get in. But like, she didn't know what to do or how to do it. It's like, she didn't know how to open an account. Like she also was like, we don't have enough money for that. But I'm like, $83. Can you imagine? And then I went to school and I asked all of my teachers, and none of them knew how to invest. They didn't know how to open an account or how to get a stock. Now Google is over $2,000. Actually, it's closer to $3,000 per share. And had I been able to get in when I was like younger at $83, my
Yeah.
whole life would be different. So like that's the kind of thing that I think about now when I think about what I teach. I want to help the young Teri, or the person who's like really interested in getting started, but they just don't know where to start. They don't have any education. They don't know what to do. So that's
Right.
really how I got into it.
Well, and I think that there can be a little bit of a stigma too sometimes where it's like, oh, like Google, Apple, that's already happened, but you don't know what the next big company is. And who would have
Yeah.
seen TikTok? And what about when that IPO goes? Like,
So true. And there's
yeah.
still stuff coming out. Like there's Airbnb came out recently.
Yep.
And then there's other companies that have a downfall, and then you get a chance to get in and ride it back up. Like I'm like, and everything we say today is educational purposes only. I'm not like telling you what to do. But I
Right.
think about like PayPal. PayPal is a great company, but recently it came down $100. So like now's a great opportunity if someone wanted to invest in the company to get in, but it's a thing of when the opportunity comes, do you even know what to do?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And so clearly, you when you saw that this was a valuable skill that you could teach and people wanted to learn it, you clearly are passionate about teaching that. And so, like, why do you think investing itself is important for people to learn?
Yes. So the way that I teach investing is a little different than other people. I think oftentimes we hear like you should invest and you'll have $1 million and buy a Maserati and buy a Lambo. No, 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 no.
Right.
The way that I teach it is I want you to be able to invest so that you can afford to pay like $100 car note. Or I want you to be able to afford that hotel room in the Maldives that you've been wanting. I know that
Mm,
it's $1,200 a night, which is really expensive, but you can invest to save up for that. So we're trading for bite-sized goals, and that's more doable. So like I tell my students, like when we're thinking about trading, we're trying to make 1% of our cash amount on a regular basis, which sounds really small, but it adds up. If you were to make
right.
1% each weekday, that's like 5% a week, 20% a month. That's huge returns. That's beating the market. But just by trying to make a 1% goal. So like
Mm,
I think it's important for people to learn how to use investing to pay for their small goals or pay for their bills. Like me, I think about Jonah. I actually paid off my debt, my student loan debt with trading. It was
wow.
something that like I had been wanting to pay it off. It was $17,000, and so I made a goal. Okay, if I could just make $300 on a regular basis, I can pay it off. And that was actually the same goal I had when I was trying to quit from being an assistant principal. If I could just make $300 a day, that would add up to replace my income. So that's why I think investing is important, because people often just think about it for retirement or these lofty goals, but you can actually use it to pay for things like is in a private school and he wants to keep his kid in a private school and it's $1,000. How do we just make $1,000 a month with trading to keep him in the school? Or I have like one student, she wanted to do renovating her kitchen. Okay, instead of just paying, because it was going to cost $35,000. So instead of just using that 35,000 and giving it over to the cabinet man, how do I like invest with that 35,000 and then use the profits to pay for the kitchen? And she did it. She actually did it in 3 months.
In
She
three
like
months.
traded with the 35. She did.
Ah,
She traded with the 35,000, made enough to renovate the kitchen, but now she still has that initial deposit in her trading account where she can
so
actually
she
start
did.
doing other things.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is really, I just need to recognize this for a sec, because I at this point in this job, and then just also from clients I've had making content, like I've worked with a variety of investment creators and stuff. And usually it is either long game, get in young, or which is its own thing for retirement, or we're gonna make you a millionaire, in
Right.
2 months. So you're really filling this gap of like small measurable goals. So I imagine also, and sorry, I'm a little off topic here, but I imagine also just it's very risk management. It's very like you're not dealing with like amounts of money that would hurt if you
Right,
lost it.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So some people ask me the question like, "Well, Terry, how much do I need to get started?" And I actually tell them, "Well, first open an account with $500 and then practice in a simulator with fake
Mm,
money until you're good." So
mm,
like that's part of our risk management plan. You're going to practice until you're
mm.
actually doing well at this.
Right.
And then like I have a whole section on risk management, like how do you protect yourself from losing? How do you actually figure out the right times to get in and out of the trade? How do you protect your quantity size? Like one of my biggest failures was I was trading Pandora stock, which I loved at the time. One failure is it's not the best in a category. Like I'm thinking about the radio station Pandora, Spotify,
Yep.
YouTube, all these other competitors, so much better than the stock I picked. So that's part of it too. We work on picking the right companies.
Right.
But at the time, so and this was actually in Thailand. It was crazy. Like it was a beautiful day. Like I had just like put these lanterns up and like it was a festival of lanterns. So if you can imagine, like we're on this bridge and all these beautiful lanterns are going up and we're doing wishes and I'm wishing that I'm going to be the best investor ever. Like this is before courses. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just thinking
Right.
about me traveling and trading. So I'm like, oh, I just want to be the best investor ever. So after that, like I go find a quiet corner. I open up my phone. I'm thinking I'm going to be rich this day because I had just invested 8,000 shares into Pandora stock and it was earnings day. All of this is wrong, guys. All of this is wrong. So I open up my
Oh
phone
no.
and I'm just like, earnings had come out. They had not done good at earnings. The stock had fallen and it had fallen $3. But mind you, I have 8,000 shares. So it is down like $24,000 overnight. And I'm like, this is still, I'm educator salary. Like that's like all my savings. I am boohoo crying. I'm calling my mom like, oh my God, I got to go back to having a job. Like this is a horrible day for me. But part of the things that I had done wrong is one, I hadn't picked the right company. I hadn't got in at the right time. Investing around earnings is really risky. That's not a good thing to do. I had way too many shares. So now, like in the course, we talk about all those things. How do you protect yourself? Like, what's the risk management? One of them, how do you, like, I have a formula for the right quantity size.
Mm.
I have a formula for your reward to risk. I had way too much risk on that trade. I have a like that's the kind of things we cover. So no matter how much money you have, these skills will help protect you and help you reach those smaller things that you really want.
Right.
Hmm.
And that loss probably did motivate you to figure out some better ways of doing it,
It totally did.
right?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Like, my biggest fear is having to go back and get a job.
So is that, because I was gonna ask, like, how the heck did that not scare you away from investing? Was the job just a worse option?
Yes, but you know what it was? My mom actually, when I called her, like, I literally called her, and I remember this conversation. I called and I'm like, "Mommy, I made a mistake. Everything is wrong. I can't believe this." And she was like, "Well, how are you going to get your money back if you quit right now?"
Uh,
And that was, to me, that sounds so simple, but to me, it was revolutionary because one, I thought of anybody, she would be the one to say, "I told you so."
right.
Because she had already been kind of hesitant when I was going on this trip. Who quits their good paying jobs, consistent salary job to go travel around the world and trade stocks? Who does that? And she was the main one, like, you can always go back to being a substitute teacher. You can always get another. So I thought when
Yeah.
this happened, she for sure was going to come at me with the "I told you so." But for her to say, like, actually, like, you got to keep going. Like, you can't quit now. Like, now that you know what you did wrong, maybe you can do it right next time. So that actually is the things that laid out my risk management and what I teach in the course now from that loss is how all of it got better.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that was just a God moment. I'm just so thankful that she said that, because she could have said so many other things.
Yeah. Parents surprise us sometimes too, right? They'll be on us
Mhm.
about one thing, but then in the moment of crisis, they say exactly what we need. That's just
Right. I yeah, I don't know what came over her that day. That must have been like some special power, cuz
okay, yeah,
cuz
it's the
that was
right
just
time.
the right thing to say to me.
Yeah. Well, and so we've we've touched kind of just a little bit on like some aspects in which the way you teach investing is different, but
Yeah.
there's also just so much, dare I say, like garbage out there about investing. And
Yeah.
it's can be really hard when everyone's promising you that Lamborghini to know who to listen to and what to do. So like in your opinion, what are some of the like top 3 or more or less like the biggest myths about
Yes.
investing? And we can touch on those.
I think one of them, there's actually 4 that I talk about often. One is that it's a gamble. Like, investing is too risky, and that's like the first one. I think that's the one that scares the most people away. Terry, all I've heard is that investing is too risky. And on that one, I do come back to the risk management that I teach. There are ways to look at, I'm a technical analysis trader, so I look at stock charts, but there's a way for us to see, like, is the reward to risk on this trade, like, worth it? So
Mm,
anytime we take a trade, we're looking at trades that are 3 times the reward to our risk. So that means, like, if you take this trade, the likelihood of you being successful is 3 times higher than not. Does that mean that you're always going to win? No. And even in trading, like, the thought is, if I'm taking trades with a 3-to-1 reward to risk ratio, I could lose 3 times and have one that goes well and break even. So, like, first of all, we're able to calculate, or that's what we're trying to do. That's what we do in the class. Calculate trades that are higher probability before we even take the trade. So
right.
that's one thing. So then when you're able to kind of calculate that reward to risk on the front end, it takes a bit of the gamble out. Like, yes, like we said, no investment is foolproof. I would never tell you that you can't lose, because you can. But when you do the homework on the front end, it does make it a lot better. And then also we're using things like a stop loss. It's an order type that if the stock comes down, it'll take you out of the trade and it'll protect you from losing. So there are ways to make it less risky. Like I said,
Right.
there's always going to be risk, but like, that's one myth that I think People think, oh, it's totally a gamble. You have no control, but you actually do. Like putting in those stop losses, looking at your reward to risk in advance gives you a bit more control.
Right.
So that's one myth. Another myth is it takes a whole lot of money to get started. And that's also not true. Like I was telling you earlier, I tell students to start with $500, but then the next step up, I usually say, okay, the next step is 2,000. And now let's see if you're able to start making that 1% return on 2,000. That doesn't sound like a lot. It's just $20. But hey, if you can get consistent with making $20 return on 2,000, now as you put more money in your account, you can be more consistent with making bigger gains. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that's lunch every day at least.
It is.
So,
And
like, that's better than
it's better than nothing. And it adds
Yeah,
up. $20, like when I think about it, $20 each day of the weekday is $100. And then I don't amortize up, or like I would keep that $20 goal. Even if my
right,
account got a little bigger, I'd still be just trying to go for $20. So if you do $20 over the month, that's $400 return. That's a car payment. That's a cell phone payment. Like that's it for me. I'm traveling all the time. That's a hotel room. Do that
right,
enough times, and now I got a trip.
right,
so
right.
so it's those small little gains. And then a lot of my students will go up to maybe like $10,000. And then as they really excel, they'll get to like 30,000. And that's when they start making like $1,000 in a day. Because
Right,
at that point, they're starting to actually do more than just 1% return. It might be 3 to 5% return on a trade.
right.
So it doesn't have to start with a lot of money. So I think that's another myth. And then another myth that I get is it's a ton of time. Oh, Teri, you're just staring at your computer screen all day. And like, I don't have time for that. I got to work a full time job. But y'all got to remember, when I was trading, I was doing it as a side hustle while I was an assistant principal. So I didn't have time to stare at the computer all day either. Like, I'd lose my job. So what I would do is I would look at like, you can trade on your cell phone. So I would look at how my stocks were doing in the beginning of the day. I'd make a meeting with myself. Then at lunch, I'd kind of check my phone. And then my real homework came at night. That's where I would look at the charts, look at the news on the different companies that I was following, and I would be able to figure out, okay, when the stock comes to this price, this is where I'll get in. And I could put a
Mm,
notification on my cell phone. And then just during the day, if the notification came up, then I could say, okay, hey, this is the place where my homework said I want to get into this trade. So let me do it.
mm,
So that helps. And I do think, because I'm a technical analysis trader and I'm looking at charts, that helps a lot too. Like
right.
fundamental traders, they're doing like a lot of research, and we still do research. We're usually trading companies that are healthy companies that most long-term investors would also trade. So we're not doing like penny stocks or anything too risky. Like my favorite stocks right now are like Amazon, Adobe, Visa, so
Mm,
like healthy, solid companies, but we're just trading in and out of them for income.
right.
Yeah. And
So
I do. Oh,
you
go ahead.
may have some stocks in these companies otherwise for retirement and stuff, but like, but we just to be clear for everyone watching, we're talking like in the beginning of the day, out at the end.
Or it might be a swing trade. So our chart may tell us like, get in at this price, and when it gets to this price, sell.
Oh, okay.
That may not happen in one day. It might be a swing trade is when you get in one day and
Hmm.
then exit later, for those that don't know on the call. So it might happen in a couple weeks, or it might take a week to get to our target. So often I'm not actually day trading. I'm getting into a stock and then letting it have its time to get to the
Mm,
target.
okay, so there's a little more. It's kind of the combination of technical analysis and fundamental, right? To make this,
Hmm.
that's cool. Okay, well,
Yeah.
and one other kind of myth, I think there's a beauty to apps like Robinhood and stuff that have made investing more accessible. But are you working on those, or because like stop loss and all of these things, you're teaching some other platforms, right? Just to
Yeah.
like get people's heads wrapped around like what your day looks like, what are you using and how you do that.
Great question, Jonah. That's really astute. Yes, in order to do the things we're doing, you need a more robust broker. So I don't really recommend Robinhood very often, because it's not as robust. It doesn't have as good of charting technology. Also, it doesn't have very fast entry times. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's broken down several times. So
Right.
and it got
Right
hacked
when you
recently.
need
So So
did
we're
it.
not
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
trying to not to stay with that. But so some of the things that my students are using, we use TradeStation. That's a pretty good broker. It's award winning and it allows you to do 2 exits at a time. So like there's something called a bracket order where you can put an order to protect yourself. That's that stop loss I was telling you about. And you can put an order to exit your trade at your target at the same time. And that way you can do like a set it and forget it trade. Like if you are at work and you can't look at your phone, the computer will automatically exit the trade for you. So that's really cool.
Oh,
Also,
wow.
it does faster entries and exits. So if I take a trade in TradeStation and my student takes one in Fidelity, I may get a better price. So that's one that I
Huh.
recommend. A lot of my Canadian students are using TD or Interactive Brokers. Both of those are 2 good ones. And most of like those 3 platforms usually cover most of Europe and North America. Some of our students in Africa have to use a different broker,
Hmm.
but no matter which one you choose, you just need to have one that does do really fast entries and exits, has good customer service, and then also that has more robust order types.
Right.
Like even trailing stops is another thing. A trailing stop means as the stock starts moving up, your stop to protect you will also move up. Some brokers don't
Ah.
have that. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so I just wanted to call out these tools because I think some people just think like, "Oh, yeah, Robinhood's where you buy stocks if you're not gonna go to an office and sit down with a broker."
Right.
But
It's a
there's
good
other
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, just that I appreciate you calling out these other robust tools. There's a lot of ways to do this from anywhere in the world, and that's what
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what's crazy? I think that investing is one of the easiest things to enter because there's so many online brokers now and everybody went to zero commissions. And that's something that some people don't realize is such a big transition. Just a couple of years ago or even when I first started my course, we were really excited about our partnership with TradeStation because they were letting us trade for free. Now
Mm,
everybody trades for
right.
free.
Right.
so so like things have become it's like the barriers to entry for investing have really gone down. But I think because of that, that's why courses like Trade and Travel or other courses are so important because like now that everybody can get into it, you need more education because like it does take some training to be successful at it, even though it's easy to do. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just if they said boating licenses were free, that doesn't mean everyone should just go grab a boat and
And sail
crash into
away.
each other. Yeah. Still need to
Just
know how to
start
sail.
sailing.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
That's true.
yeah, I appreciate. And so in your course, uh, we'll talk a little more about your course after some Q&A, but like in
Sure.
your course, just to summarize because I love thinking about how you decided to structure this. You're taking little amounts, developing an education, developing a system, and then you said you don't just like trail up as you're doing better. So there's like landmarks of points where you go up. So you work something
Yes.
for a while, get really good at it, and then go to the next step.
Yes, great question. So it's based off of my own journey. So when I was thinking about leaving the school and leaving my assistant principal salary, my salary is about $60,000 a year. So I figured if I could just make $300 a day, then I could replace my income.
Mm,
And that 300 was stagnant. Like I had about 30, it was like around 35,000, a little less that I had pulled over from old retirement accounts. Like, when you
mm,
leave a job,
mhm,
I had some extra money in some of those like 40, I was in a nonprofit, so like 403Bs and 401Ks that I moved into a self-directed IRA. So my initial goal was like, okay, if I could just make 1% of that, which was around $300, then I could replace my income. That would be $1,500 a week, $6,000 a month. And then I could live a beautiful life just making $300 a day. So
that's a
for the
great
first
income already.
Right? That
Yeah.
like that's wonderful. And like so many people think that you have to make like these six-figure salaries and these big salaries to be happy. No. If I could just make $300 a day, even $200 a day, I could be happy. Right? And I would be free. I didn't have to worry about my boss and the headaches and the everything else and gaining weight. I was gaining so much weight. Um, so back to focus though. So I just needed $300 a day. I honestly, Jonah, I traded like that for probably the first 2 years after I quit my job. So I would make some money and then I would move it into a different account and then I would keep my trading account the same size. So in the
Okay.
course, that's very similar. Like because we're trading for goals, my thought is that you're not just having your money stack up, stack up, stack up. Like you're going to use that money. So you want to be able to move it to a different account, pay a bill, give it away, do something with it, and then just be really good at trading that amount. And then once you get to a point where, hey, maybe I already paid off my debt or I achieved this goal, well, maybe your amount changes. Like, okay, well, now I'm trading with these numbers sound big, but my students are really doing this. So maybe now I'm trading with 50,000. So now my goal is actually $500 a day or I say in a day, because sometimes it's more of an average. Like maybe
In a
one day you
trade,
make
right?
2,000, another day you make nothing or you lose a little, but you can average out to these numbers. So like
Gotcha.
now my goal is I'm going to make $500 on a regular basis because now my account size is bigger.
Right.
But I kind of graduate the goals up as I get really good and nail that one goal. Not each day because the account is bigger, I change the amount.
That's so clear. I just know from my own experience, like it's hard not to get greedy. You have a good. I've
That's
had
one of the
some good.
biggest things people get
Yeah,
wrong. Don't be
yeah.
greedy.
I've had some good trades, and then I'm like, well, now I'm ready for 5 grand in the account or 10 grand in the account, and of course I wasn't. But that's
Right. You know what the
it took
craziest
time.
part is? What people don't realize is the hardest part about investing, there's actually two. The hardest part about investing is one, consistency.
Hmm.
So once you have that really great trade, the next goal is not to up the level. The next goal is, can I do it again? And
Mm-hmm.
how many times can I do it again in a row? Like that's when you're really an expert. When you can say like I can make $100 a day every day for 20 days in a row, that person is an excellent trader. But the person who can make like 10,000 one day, that person is just okay in my book.
They got lucky.
They got
Or
lucky.
yeah, yeah.
So consistency is huge. And then like mastering your mindset. Like when you
Mm.
said like I get greedy, like that's the next hardest part of trading. Being disciplined, mastering your emotions, being able to stick to a trading plan, stick to your checklist, get out when you're losing and also get out when you're winning. That's the part that's the hardest. And that's what people really have to master to be a good trader.
It's hard when it's money. Money can
Oh
be
yeah.
so emotional. It can be so yeah, and it's nice to have, and it sucks to lose. So
It's so true. It's hard when it's money. It's hard.
yeah.
But like that's why like in my class the fourth module is all about a trading plan. So
Mm,
we have an actual 7-step strategy like these are the 7 steps we take every time we take a trade.
mm.
When my students are consistent with those 7 steps, you see consistency in their trading. But when they start venturing off and I'm going to just try this thing, this I heard this, that's when they're like, "Oh, Terry, I messed up."
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like anything, right? Like rely on the practice, both in the mindset and everything. Like practice will make. I think it, it's often I know, especially from like the family I came from, where trading wasn't just finance wasn't really a thing. My generation is much more into it, but like
Yeah.
it was just like either you have to be rich to make money in the stock market or you get lucky. There was never this mindset of like, no, you can become like really, really good at trading. You can practice, you can like actually learn it as a skill. So I appreciate the world we're living in and there's people like you training that. It's so cool. But
Yeah.
I wanted to ask just one more question and then turn over to all the people who have been asking questions. And thank you, everyone, for popping in there. We are going to get to all of these before we end today.
Awesome.
But just the last kind of question I have for you is you've alluded to that, like what you're doing in this class or in your courses in general is not like buy and hold investing. But like, do you have an overall opinion on that? Is that something people can expect from the course at all, or just where do you sit with that?
Great question. So I am strictly an active investor. Like that's what I teach in the course and that's what I focus on. But it's really because I feel like as a creator, I wanted to like have a niche and stick with what I'm really good at. Like
Mm,
I used active investing to change my life and get out
mm,
of a situation that I just was toxic for me. My work environment was toxic. So like that's what I want to share with the world. That's what I want to help them with. But I do think there's a place for both. I think there's a place for long term investing, buy and hold, where you do save for retirement. And then there is a place for active investing. And I think you can do both at the same time. To me,
mm.
I correlate it to being like a flipper in real estate. There's some people that are going to buy a house, hold that house, let it appreciate over time. And then there's some people that are going to get the house, renovate it, flip it, make some money real fast. But it's really because they have different goals. One might need the money quickly and another may not need the money for a while.
Right.
So, depending on your goals at the time, then that's how you can choose to invest. And then I also, like, I personally have two different accounts. So, I
Mm,
have one account that's more passive and it's invested. I don't even want to open up a whole bottle of worms on like how that's invested, but it's
right.
it's
Right.
diversified and it's got like a steady 6% return. No, like I don't look at it too much. I don't do too much on it. But I know that it's there. And then I have another pot that's my trading pot. And that's where my goals are a bit higher. But the cool thing about it is I know that if I lose all of it, which hopefully that's not the case, but as a trader, you have to have that
Yep.
mindset. Like I
Yep.
have the like if all this goes away, I will not die. Right.
Right.
But so my goals in that pot are a little bit more risky. But if I were to lose it, I know that I have some other money on the side. So I
Right.
think that it's good to have both going at the same time. And then I mean the goal though is always to beat the passive with your more active income and use that to really like pay for the things that you want. So
Well, I imagine too over time, once you're trading 50,000 and you're bringing 500 in a day or something, say you're making 10, 20 grand a month, like you still shouldn't be living. You can live whatever life you want, but you still shouldn't be living and spending all that 10 to 20 grand every month, right? So you are
exactly.
still you're still putting some of it away. I
It's
mean, do
important.
you if you want to ball out, but like
Right, right. Go get that private jet if you want to. Somebody was making fun of me because I don't have a Louis Vuitton purse and my car is like a 2011 Kia Sportage. I'm just now trying to go get a new car. But like my biggest goal is I just want freedom.
Yeah,
So like I have paid off all my debt. I've, paid off the car, paid off my house. Like everything is paid off so that I can have freedom. So you don't have to ball out. Like
yeah,
once you get to a place where you're just like content, that also allows you not to have to trade as often. And I want to touch on that for some. Like I see Mia, shout out to Mia Knox here. She says her husband took the course. Shout out, yay! But some of my students too, I remind them don't over trade. Like there's
mm,
going to be some times where there's just not any good opportunities in the market. So those are times where you can kind of relax and kick your feet up because hey, you've done well in the past and you had
right.
this extra money. So now you can kind of relax. But then when you see a good opportunity come, all right, I got the skill set, I can jump on that. Right? So that allows you also not to even have to trade as much.
Right, right. Well, why don't we hop into these questions because we're getting so many good questions here, and I want to make sure we get to as many as we can. I want to start with Chris, partly because we've talked a lot about just trading today. You also have built a successful business making courses,
Yeah.
and yeah, and his question was interesting, which is at first you mentioned like doing these in-person classes. Like, do you still do that, or does the course just sell itself? What is the like just general, if you can summarize your like course ecosystem at the moment?
Sure. You know what's crazy, Chris? In the very beginning, because I'm an educator, I totally was against online courses. I was like, no, I like seeing their faces. I want to be in there and like see their reactions. So I said at first I would never do an online course. Now, Now the whole course is recorded. So it's 8 weeks worth of curriculum, and I've recorded it all. And then we also have, for the first 2 years of the course, every quarter I would reteach it live, but it was on Zoom. So I would
Mm.
reteach it in coaching calls. And then if I found a way to teach it that I liked better, I'd go substitute that in the course.
Oh,
So I
cool.
have also like this vault of 48 hours of coaching calls as well that are like reteaching the curriculum four times.
That's
Actually, it's like 8
cool.
times. But no, at this point, everything is recorded. And then I have coaches. So I have a Tuesday coaching call for the VIP students. That's the ones who are in the 8-week program. And that's a live coaching call with one of the students who I've trained through the program. Wednesdays, we also have an office hours that's live. And then Saturday, we have another study group that's live. So the curriculum is recorded and it can run by itself. However, we have those live touch points for the students when they need help.
Okay, okay. That's cool too though. So like it's evolving constantly as you teach new people and stuff. I love that. Which is
Yeah.
also I've talked to so many creators about courses and course creation, and I think before I really understood how a lot of creators make their courses, it seemed like everyone just sits, they pre-record a course, and then you're getting this thing frozen in time. But most of the best creators, it's an evolving piece. I just want to call that out because for everyone watching, sometimes that's a myth I see about course creation in general. So I
Yes.
appreciate that you do that. Yeah.
You know what's crazy? I think that was a false expectation that I put on myself when I was first making the course. I
Hmm.
kept dangling in front of myself, like, well, once you finish working on this, you'll be done and you won't have anything else to do. And I would dangle in front of myself, like, okay, I'm working really hard right now and I'm not sleeping and I'm always doing these recordings, but one day I won't have to do anything. And then the course is finished and one day comes and it's like, that was so untrue because now I'm managing all these students in the course and I'm
Yeah.
hiring and I and I'm like working with customer service calls and people want this and they didn't get access and they need passwords. So it doesn't actually stop. The work just changes.
Right.
So you go from being consistently just one-on-one with students and in content creation mode to now being more CEO mode.
Right.
But like that's one thing I wish I had told myself, like, Teri, this is going to be an ongoing process and an ongoing commitment if you really want to do this well. But the coolest thing is you'll be your own boss and you get to choose when you decide to go hard. You'll get to choose what you work on. So those are the perks of it, but it is still a lot of work at every stage. So yeah, for anybody who's thinking that you
Just have
just record it and leave it alone, probably not.
is there is there any element of that though where like in retrospect maybe you would have been less of a perfectionist about it early on knowing you could evolve it and change it more, or do you think it's still worth like really putting the time into those initial like recordings and stuff?
I'm really glad that I put the time into the initial recordings because I feel like now when people come into the course, they really do get my best because I went through so many iterations. Like I
Mm-hmm.
recorded it, then I would teach it on a call, and then I'd be like, okay, they didn't get it. And then I record it again.
Right.
So I think that now the system I have is the best system that I can think of. And even now, like it's been 2 years since I recorded some of the pieces. So we're going back and refreshing it again. Like it's consistently evolving. The part that I wish I could tell my younger self or my I'm not that old, but you know what I'm saying? Like my like self when I first started was like it's okay to give up some pieces of control. I wish that I had
Mm,
given up control faster. So
right.
for the first 2 years, I was literally on coaching calls every single week. And I had made a promise to my students, you get into the course and then I'll teach you and we'll do coaching calls. And so for 2 years every week I was on calls and that just drained all my energy. It kind of took some of my love away from the course and I was just like, man, like do I have to get on a call one more time and say the same thing and answer the same
Right.
questions?
Right.
um but the reason why I did that is cuz I was afraid that nobody else could do it the way that I do it. But
Mm,
now that I've like given over control to some of the coaching calls to my successful students, I'm realizing, well, Teri, if you did a good job teaching them, then you should have students that can do just what you do. And like literally, like one of the students that teaches one of the coaching calls, his account is up. It was like last month, I think it was up over 6,000%. Like he had taken a $500 account to over $35,000 just using my strategy. And it's like, Terry, you taught him how to do that. So now he should be able to teach other people how to do it. So that's one thing I would tell myself and anybody on the call. If you're really worried about giving up control, like think about like if you're doing what you said you're doing, which is teaching them how to do whatever content or skill you're teaching, then by a certain point, your students should be good enough to actually replace you. And that's something that I'm learning now slowly to give up
Hmm.
control and just trust that.
Yeah. Uh,
Mhm.
I appreciate that. So veer away from course making because we've got a lot of questions about investing, and
Sure.
I want to. There was. Sorry, I got to look through. Oh, Brenda. No, sorry, Janice here, and I
Okay.
know it may be complicated because this is not a financial advice video,
Yeah.
but but it seems in line with kind of what you teach. Janice is asking. So she just started with Schwab. She's got $800, bought some shares in two companies, but only wants to invest in companies that she believes in, all knowing about investing, buy low, sell high. Any advice? So also just to synthesize, like if you if you're coming from that mindset of whether it's just ethically or wanting to care about like the companies that you're buying into, do you have any advice on that approach?
Sure. I think that the answer for this one would come a little bit from my first module and a little bit from my third module. So I'll just give you some tips here. So, one, you can invest in any company that you like, but if you're thinking of it for active income, there's a couple criteria that you need to think of. So, some of the criteria I teach is it needs to be a healthy company. So, if you look at it over a year, has the stock price been going up? Has it been on an
Mm,
uptrend? Then, if you're investing it for income, it needs to move. So, there's something called the
mm,
average true range. It's a study, but it tells you about on an average how much does this stock move per day. You want it to move at least $1 a day. If it's
mm,
like a great company, but it only moves a couple cents a day, you're not going to make money on it. So look at that. Another thing is you do want a company that's the best in breed. So even if you like there's some hair products I like. I love the hair product, but it's not the best company to invest in because when I stack it up against other competitors, when the market's doing well, it's not the one that does the best on that day. And when the market's doing bad, I want a company that moves the least down on that day. So compare it to its competitors. Make sure it's the best in breed. It moves at least $1 a day, and it's a healthy company on an uptrend. So, like those are some of the things I talk about in the first module, which I think would help. And then to your question of all you know is buy low, sell high. Honestly, as an active investor, that's still some of the things that we teach. But I think reading charts would help you because reading a chart would say, okay, this looks like the actual price where it'd be best to get into this company. Even if, like, for example, we say Apple. So Apple went up to, I'm making up some numbers here, but Apple went up to $150 and then came down one day to 135. Well, both people that like if two people were investing in Apple, if one gets in at 150 and another one got in at 135, they're both invested in Apple, but there were better times to get into the company or to get into the stock.
mm,
You can find out that by looking at a chart. So
mm.
that would be something I'd say like it'd be helpful in the course to learn that technical analysis piece to figure out like when's the best time to buy this stock, even though I know I want it, but there might be a better time.
Right. I'm
Mhm.
starting to even just see as you put all the pieces together, it's like this is math and this is practice. It can all just be done if
Yeah.
you take the time to learn it or take your course.
Yeah.
um,
And well, and I do want to also mention Janice had another question about the 6% return. I'm just looking in the comments. So since we're talking to
mhm,
Janice, what I invested in, and this is something I do want everyone to do your research on, but there's a stable coin. It's a crypto coin, but it's called a stable coin called the USDC. Let me say that one more time. It's a USDC, and it's a crypto coin, but it's backed one by one by for the excuse me, it's backed by the US dollar, one for
Hmm.
one. So if you have one coin, that's the same as $1. A lot of times those USDC coins have an interest rate. So where I'm invested, the interest right now for it is 6% return. So as long as I just keep the money invested in USDC coins, every month I'm getting a 6% return payout.
Mm.
And actually, it's more like 6% over the year, and then they pay you out monthly. But that's how I'm doing that more passive with
Oh, okay.
USDC coins.
That's fascinating. Okay. That's
Mhm.
so it's like stable crypto.
Yeah. Uh huh.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Hmm.
interesting. Okay, so a very specific question to your course. In your course, do you provide like daily info for what's happening in the market and what orders, or are you providing those resources?
I'm not like there's some courses that do like copy trading where they do a shout out and then everybody invest in it. But what I found is oftentimes people don't do the right timing. Like
Mm,
I'll see a great stock, but if you didn't get into it right this second, then you got in at the wrong time. So
right.
for me, I'd rather teach them how to trade so they can pick the companies on their own and figure out the times on their own than just do the shout outs. So I don't do that.
But then in that
Mhm.
way, also, it's like, teach a person to fish versus give them a fish. You're actually giving them the resource to not need those call outs, right? Because they can do it themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Love it.
I've seen that go wrong so many times where somebody who's super educated and they know their strategy, they give advice, but then the people who are doing it, they don't know the behind the scenes, they don't know how to do it for themselves. So when the person stops just like giving out advice, then they're lost. And I don't want my students to feel that way. I want them to know how to do their own research and do it for themselves.
Hmm. Well, so we don't have to like bash anyone else or anything, but I think it's an interesting. I don't know the details, but maybe you have more insight as far as online
Yeah.
trading academy. Just Linda is asking how does what you teach compare to online trading academy?
Linda, that's a great question because I actually did go through OTA's course.
Hmm.
What's crazy is I told you I've been trading 11 years. So, like towards the latter part of my journey, I went to OTA. And what was crazy is a lot of the things I was doing was similar to what they were doing. So it is similar. I actually think that what they teach is solid. But what I found is when I went to OTA, a lot of times, so I'm just going to give you two examples because we're not bashing any other program. But there was one class I took, and the class was super expensive. Like I had paid like $30,000 per class, and I know that this couple had paid like $45,000 to be in that class, and they were asleep because the teacher I guess they just did not understand that the teacher wasn't like really teaching well. So like
Ah,
they were asleep. And I just felt so bad because I'm like, man, you just paid $45,000 to be in this class and you're not learning. And we'd have these breakout sessions, and everybody would like swarm to me at lunchtime and ask me all the questions because I think I just have a different teaching style.
huh.
So I think that what they're teaching actually is valid and works and is good, but the way that I teach and my style is different. And that's for many courses. Like there can be two courses on similar topics, but the teachers are just different.
Right.
Other things that I think about that too is in the way it was back in the day when I had gone, they had like one live week of trading, which is actually super cool. And then you would go kind of into an online world. Whereas us, we just have like online course from the beginning and then consistent coaching calls that you can come to for a lifetime. So that's kind of it's a little bit of a different setup too. But I don't knock any other program or courses. I
Yeah.
think it's good.
Well, and that's the beauty of this. I know from a course creation standpoint, it can always be like, well, someone else has done it. But the beauty of this world now is like you can learn something from someone who vibes with you. And it doesn't just
Yeah,
have to be like one person teaching it. We can find the person who teaches it right for us. I appreciate
agree.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, have a few more questions here, and then we will have to wrap up shortly just for time. But wanted to ask this one from Rowland. Once you find your trading style, how do you start to scale up?
Good. So for me, because I still stick with the 1% of my cash amount, for me to scale up, I'm doing the same exact strategy, but now I'm doing it with a larger account. And also, once I become more consistent, I learned that I can actually have bigger returns with the same strategy. So,
Mm,
for example, there
mm,
was like, I've had some great trades this year. Like one trade on Apple, I had like 300% return. Another one was like 1,500% return on an Amazon trade, and doing the same exact strategy. But now, because I'm more proficient at it, I know an even better time to enter and an even better time to exit. And I'm just gotten better and better at my same strategy. So, part of it is as you get more consistent and as you get better, you can make bigger returns with the same amount of money. And then, two, as my account has grown, I've also been able to make more money.
right. But again, that thing of like locking down your strategy before jumping to the next ring, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then gonna ask, I think we've gotten to everyone's questions, and thank you everyone for asking so many good questions and just being active in here. But there was one more I wanted to hit, which was, by chance, will you have a discount offered to join your course? And thank you so much for asking, because yes, we do. And
Yes. Teachable's been pretty awesome. They're going to offer the Black Friday sale early. So if you click the link they provide, then you'll get access to our Black Friday sale. We took
yeah,
like $250 off of the first 4 weeks and $500 off of the full course. So yes,
yes.
you get a sale.
And for everyone watching, the link is in the comments. It's also in the description, and it'll be emailed to you along with the replay if you RSVP to the event. But it's only for a week, so you want to take advantage of that now. And there was one more question that tagged on to this that I kind of wanted to ask, because it's very relative to, like, I think of taking your course as the first step in investment, as part of the
Yeah.
investment. And so Jer USA was asking, or Jerusa, sorry, I'm so used to seeing people tag USA at the end of their names. But how long will it take to see real money and results after you finish the class? But do people start trading in the class? When can a student expect to be trading?
They do. And actually, this is actually another thing that's a little different from other courses. So after the first 2 weeks, you actually, one of your homework assignments is to start trading. So if you're still scared, you can do it in the simulator, but you take 5 trades. That's your homework after the first week of training. So many students actually start making profit even in the first couple weeks. Now, I will say though, it's always good advice to think that the class is 8 weeks. Give yourself a year to be consistent before you think about like quitting your job.
Hmm.
I think that it takes time to really learn to be a good investor. You will be making money though. So, like, I have several students that within a few months of taking the class, they pay back the cost of the class because they're trading, right? So, they pay back themselves or pay themselves back. So, every student's different, but do give yourself some time because some of it is just like getting used to the market in all different seasons.
Right. And the whatever time you have to put into it every day too, I'm sure affects it. Like, yeah, your
Yeah,
life
that's
outside of
true.
it. Yeah.
Life
Um,
happens.
life happens. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Terry. We do have to wrap up just for time, but we appreciate you so much. For everyone watching, we appreciate you being here. Please hop in the comments and thank Terry for her time. Shout out something you learned, maybe what your next
Yeah.
goal is in your journey for trading. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to the Discover YouTube channel. We're trying to bring more creators like Terry out to teach us their knowledge and grow this great community. And this week specifically, we are just packing every day full of events. So if you go to the link in our description as well, you can see the full schedule for this week. And we got 2 more today as well. And before we wrap up, Terry, I just do want to ask one more question, which is, before we call it quits, I know that there can be a system, it can be math, it can all be learnable, but at the end of the day, like, I know I delayed actually making investments and actually being in the stock market for 5 years at least, and earlier, considering I could have got in it before I was 18. But, like, for those people who want to do it but then every day wake up and it just doesn't make it on the to-do list, Like, do you have any advice or somewhere you can start, maybe with or without putting money in right away, to just keep the flame alive and start investing?
Sure. Honestly, though, I think the best place to start is with a course. So I do
Hmm.
think that like my trade and travel course is a good basic step. And then we've learned that our students actually have started becoming friends and they have literally 50 meetup groups all over the United
Mm,
States and now Canada and Europe. So like the best thing is to maybe get into a course where you can get into a community and have some accountability. I think that will help you like move through the education part a little better. That would be the probably biggest advice. And if you guys do have any questions, feel free to reach us at hello@itradeandtravel.com. That's another good place if you have any additional questions after this to reach our team.
love it. And so they can reach out with just in general with any questions, or is that
Yeah,
just for the
in
course?
general with any questions, that's our email box. That's our customer service team, but they're also many of them are students, so they can
Hmm.
answer your questions on what it feels like to be in the class. And I even think about the question that was like, "What makes your course different from this one?" Like we
Hmm.
have gaps in Globex, we do options trading. That's different than some of the other courses. So yeah, any of those questions, like please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to answer them.
Love it. And for everyone watching as well, I am dropping Terry's YouTube link in there as well, where she has some other resources and just content for you. But Terry, sadly, we have to wrap up today. But thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your time and just being open with all of these questions and being available for us. It means a lot. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Jenna. Thanks
Of
everyone.
course. Bye, everybody.